Hello, my name is Juan Santiago Pedreros. I am a student of University Pilot from Colombia Seccional de la Magdalena. Today I am going to explain the central theme of the essay entitled Hierarchy of Steps for the Interpretation and Solution of Problems Related to the Use of Operation Investigation. Well, which exposes from a case study that deals with the container hierarchy, which is basically the process of loading, unloading, transshipment, organization of the physical and individual space of the containers in bays using cargo ships. Basically, the hierarchy of the process that involves solving, interpreting, demonstrating, arguing on and or concluding a problem in real life is what the essay is about. The case study on which the document was mainly based was the article described by Gracia Maria in this year, article titled A Methodological Framework for the Allocation of Storage Space for Outbound Containers. Okay, but next I will go on the relate the content of the site that provides a solution methodology for real life cases that involve the use of operation research. Okay, to get started, I will deal the entire hierarchy of procedural steps of the methodology and then explain each one. The hierarchy is as follows. First, the description of the problem and its background. Okay. Second, a review of the literature. Third, determine the methodological approach. Fourth, the grouping. Fifth, determine of the operational research model. Sixth, determine the matrix of variables. Seventh, identify the parameters or constraints, the objective function, and the decision variables of the relevant problem or case study. Eighth, fixation of the experimental framework. Ninth, model in real case study. 10th, context and data of the investigation. 11th, comparison of the grouping results with the 10th step. And finally, the conclusions. Well, the first step by title the description of the problem and its background refers to the problem, its characteristics, the objectives to be achieved, either by the physical place, the human factor, the physical and mathematical laws that surround the case study. All of the above are topics that must be investigated through the second step, which is the review of the literature. Okay? In this step, a search process is carried out in which argumentative and or literature concept and gaps will be identified to cover intellectually most of the problem, all with the aim of understanding the next. The third step, which refers to determine the methodological approach, applies the type of approach in the methodology to choose that will develop the rest of the steps to be fulfilled. Okay? This approach is decided for the organization of the process and change to be made within the case. For the context of the containers startup, a hierarchical approach is determined that involves two main phases. The first is a clustering technique, and second employs an operation research model. The first step, the grouping or clusters, is important for the classification of products or elements that make up the case study. Classification according to its quantitative or qualitative variables. In the fifth step, the parameters or constraints that affect the objective function and the decision variables that determine the future or the positive or negative effects of the problem or context in question are qualitative and quantitative. The experimental framework is the sixth step, where the possible combinations are identified, taking into account the information obtained in the fifth step. The seventh step consists of talking, refuse, and being guided by practical case models, morphologically similar to the context under study, to adapt them to the current one. The eighth step highlights the characteristics, the functioning, the process that affect the case study to identify possible new variables. Here, the internal and external process that exist in the work context are determined with lead elements intrinsical from the context to constantly interacting. The penultimate step performs a parallel that reveals the change made in the classification of the element and the information collected in the first steps with the information from the previous step. In this way, we proceeded to conclude and argue the optimal solution that take the problem or context to a favorable recursive states and adaptable to the established parameters. Well, in this way, I end the account of the document that I made. I really appreciate the attention and time given. Until next time, thank you.